superfluid, universal morphonic ocean theories that really connects some huge ideas.
It really does. We're talking black holes, thermodynamics, quantum geometry, even consciousness.
Yeah,
It's ambitious.
it definitely is. And we'll be looking at how a specific framework, the psychedelic superfluid universal morphonic ocean theory, let's call it PSUMOT for short, might actually provide the structure needed for this idea.
Right. The core concept our listener proposed involves an inverse black hole, not collapsing inward, but exploding outward in some kind of mirror dimension, driving the structure of our cosmos.
So our mission today is to really unpack that. How does PSUMT, with its focus on information being physical, potentially support this? And what does it mean for things like time, gravity, and, well, even us?
It's a fascinating synthesis. It challenges fundamental assumptions about reality. We're basically asking if information isn't just describing the universe, but actually building it.
Okay, let's dive in. Where do we even start with something this big?
Well, the foundation really has to be that idea of information itself.
Right. John Wheeler's famous phrase, it from bit.
Exactly. The concept that every physical thing, every particle, a field, whatever, derives its existence from bits, from binary choices, like yes-no answers to fundamental questions.
Which kind of flips the script, doesn't it? It suggests reality isn't just out there waiting to be found.
It implies that observation, the act of getting that yes-no answer, is actually what brings the physical reality into being. Information becomes primary.
So the universe doesn't exist in a definite state until we sort of ask the question.
That's the radical implication Wheeler put forward. And PSUO takes that abstract idea and tries to give it, well, a physical home.
Okay, so how does PSU make the bit physical? It's not just ones and zeros in a computer, right?
No. PSUO argues that a complete physics needs three core components: matter, energy, and information. Information isn't just descriptive, it's structural. It is something physical.
And that something is the superfluid ocean.
Precisely. It proposes that the underlying stuff of reality, the physical substrate for Wheeler's bit, is the collective wave function of a universe-spanning Bose-Einstein Condensate, a cosmic superfluid.
Okay, Bose-Einstein Condensate. Let's pause there. What makes a BEC special? It's more than just really cold gas, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. When matter gets incredibly close to absolute zero, the quantum waves of individual atoms overlap until they essentially merge. They lose their individual identities.
They act as one giant quantum wave.
Exactly. Perfect coherence. And a key property for this theory: zero viscosity. It flows without any friction, like a perfect fluid.
So the vacuum of space isn't empty. It's filled with this frictionless, coherent quantum fluid.
That's the core postulate of PSUOT. And if the entire universe is fundamentally this single, coherent quantum system,
then things like spacetime, gravity, even matter itself, they can't be fundamental.
they have to be emergent phenomena, collective behaviors of the underlying superfluid.
Like how temperature isn't a property of a single atom, but emerges from the average motion of many atoms.
That's a great analogy, spot on. In PSUOCO, spacetime and gravity are seen as collective excitations within the superfluid.
Excitations. Like ripples.
Kind of. Specifically, phonons, which are quantized sound waves.
Wait, sound waves. So gravity is literally the sound of the universe propagating through this fluid. That sounds wild.
It is wild, but it's mathematically framed. The theory posits that general relativity, our current description of gravity and spacetime curvature, is actually an effective theory. It's a long wavelength approximation describing the macroscopic flow, the density variations within this deeper quantum fluid.
So GR works, but it's not the fundamental picture. It's describing the surface behavior, not the underlying ocean.
You got it. And this makes information inherently physical, because the state of the information, the collective wave function of the fluid, dictates the fluid's behavior, which we then perceive as spacetime and gravity.
Okay, that groundwork is crucial. Now let's connect it back to the listener's hypothesis about black holes. Our standard picture is collapse, right? Irreversible. Maximum entropy.
The ultimate thermodynamic endpoint, yes. Things fall in, information seems lost, entropy goes way up. And PSUMOT actually ties the direction of time itself to this process.
How so? You mean the arrow of time?
Yeah. It defines the irreversible flow of time, the current we experience, as being driven by the process of quantum wave function collapse.
The act of observation we talked about earlier, when a quantum system goes from multiple possibilities to one definite state.
Exactly that. A superposition is a low-entropy, highly ordered quantum state. The collapse into a classical definite state represents an increase in entropy. It's an inherently thermodynamic process.
So time flows because observations keep collapsing wave functions, constantly increasing the universe's overall entropy, its messiness.
That's the link PSUMOT makes. Time zero is thermodynamic, rooted in quantum collapse.
Okay. But the listener's idea is the opposite of collapse, an exploding singularity in a mirror dimension. That sounds like it would have to decrease entropy, wouldn't it? Reverse the flow.
Relative to our frame, yes. It requires an inverse thermodynamic process. If our black holes are the ultimate entropy increasers, this mirror world event has to be an entropy decreaser from our perspective.
That feels like it breaks the rules. The second law of thermodynamics is pretty fundamental. How can something just decrease entropy?
The key is the mirror dimension aspect and the conservation across both. The total entropy might be conserved or increase across the entire system, our universe plus mirror, but the event looks time reversed, entropy decreasing from our side. It's about perspective and the geometry connecting the dimensions.
Ah, the geometric keyhole. The listener used that vacuum cleaner analogy, sucking matter through, leaking a bit of Hawking radiation here, but blasting most of it out the other side.
And that analogy holds up surprisingly well within the PSUMOT framework. That outward explosion from the mirrored time-reversed black hole provides the intense, localized energy and, crucially, information needed to kickstart structure in our universe.
Like the initial instability that gets everything rolling.
Exactly, a massive injection of volatility. But it can't just be a chaotic explosion, can it? The listener mentioned it needs to save the symmetry of all existence.
Right. How does an explosion preserve symmetry?
This is where a specific mathematical tool used by PSUOP becomes absolutely vital. Circle inversion geometry, or CIG.
Circle inversion geometry. Okay, what does that do?
It's a type of geometric transformation. Imagine taking everything inside a circle and mapping it mathematically to everything outside another circle, or vice versa. Crucially, CIG is conformal. It preserves angles.
It preserves angles. So it keeps the shapes, the local structure, intact even while turning things inside out.
In essence, yes. It preserves the fundamental geometric relationships, the symmetry. So the collective wave function of that superfluid erupts from the inverse singularity through this CIG keyhole.
It does so violently, but without scrambling the underlying structure.
Precisely. The symmetry is maintained. This avoids paradoxes and ensures the transferred information isn't just random noise, but has the inherent order needed to seed cosmic structures.
So it's not just energy blasting through. It's ordered, low-entropy information carried by the superfluid wave function itself.
Yes, it's a mechanism for transferring structured information across this dimensional boundary, consistent with mathematical elegance. The idea resonates with Occam's razor-simpler, symmetry-preserving models are often more powerful. Like the listener said, elegant simplicity that God favors.
Okay, if this incredibly violent yet structured explosion happened in a mirror dimension and seeded our reality, there must be some evidence left behind here, right? Some kind of echo.
Absolutely. There has to be an observable consequence in our universe. PCUNA predicts exactly that.
What form does this echo take?
Remember the superfluid and the phonons, the sound waves? That inverse decay event, the explosion, would have sent a massive pressure wave of these phonons ripping through the very early universe superfluid.
A universe-spanning sound wave from the beginning.
A colossal one. And this pressure wave would act as the direct physical imprint, the echo of that mirror world explosion within our own cosmic structure.
How would we see that today, billions of years later?
We look at the large-scale distribution of galaxies. Standard cosmology has something called the Baryon acoustic oscillation, the BAO peak. It's a characteristic scale imprinted by sound waves in the primordial plasma before atoms formed.
Right, the BAO peak is like a standard ruler cosmologists use to measure cosmic distances.
Exactly. But PSEOT predicts that the initial explosion's pressure wave would leave another distinct imprint at a different scale, a secondary Baryon acoustic oscillation peak.
The PSUMO peak. Why is a second peak such a big deal?
Because the standard model of cosmology, lambda CDM, has no mechanism to create it. In the standard model, structure formation is driven by gravity acting on dark matter and the initial smooth inflationary expansion. There's nothing to generate a second distinct large-scale pressure wave like that.
So finding that secondary peak in galaxy surveys would be...
It would be smoking gun evidence.
Yeah.
It would strongly support PSUMOT and the underlying inverse explosion hypothesis because standard cosmology simply can't explain it. It's a specific falsifiable prediction.
Okay, that's a potential future confirmation. But does this framework help with any current mysteries? The outline mentioned JWST findings.
Yes, this is a huge one. The James Webb Space Telescope has found supermassive black holes that are, frankly, far too large, far too early in the universe's history.
Too large, too early, meaning they didn't have enough time to grow that big according to standard models.
Precisely. Traditional models assume black holes grow gradually by accreting gas and merging. The JWST black holes appear so early, just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, that there literally wasn't enough time for them to gobble up enough matter to reach the observed sizes. It's a major headache for standard cosmology.
They call it shredding the models. How does the PSUM inverse explosion idea help?
If the universe's initial structure wasn't from a smooth inflation, but was seeded by this massive structured information transfer via the inverse explosion,
Then the seeds for these massive black holes were already there. They didn't need to grow from scratch.
exactly. The transferred superfluid wave function contained the density variations, the structural information needed to form these massive objects almost immediately during that initial phase transition. They were imprinted, not slowly grown.
So the same mechanism, the inverse explosion governed by circle inversion geometry, could explain both the large-scale structure, the BAO peaks, and these unexpectedly early, massive objects.
That's the elegance of it. A single unified framework, potentially resolving multiple, seemingly unrelated cosmological puzzles. It's very compelling from a theory.
Just general relativity. You said earlier space-time itself is emergent in PSUMOT.
Right. GR describes gravity beautifully, but assumes space-time is fundamental and that gravitational waves travel through a vacuum at the speed of light, c.
But PSUMO says there is no true vacuum, only the superfluid.
Correct. And if space-time is just the description of this fluid's flow, then gravitational waves, which are ripples in space-time, must interact with the fluid itself. They aren't traveling through emptiness.
Interact how? Would it slow them down?
That's the prediction. Just like light slows down when it enters water or glass from air, PSUMT predicts an effective refractive index for spacetime itself.
A refractive index for gravity. Wow. Where would we see that?
The effect would be most noticeable where the superfluid is densest, like the core regions of galactic halos. Imagine the halo of our own Milky Way.
Okay, so if a gravitational wave passes through our galactic halo,
The prediction is specific. If you have a multi-messenger event, something that produces both gravitational waves and light, like a neutron star merger, and the signals travel through a dense region like a galactic halo, the gravitational wave signal should arrive slightly later than the light signal.
later, not simultaneously.
Exactly. The GW interacts with the dense superfluid, experiencing this effective refractive index, slowing it down just a tiny bit relative to light, which interacts differently.
And general relativity predicts they arrive at the exact same time, assuming they travel through a vacuum.
Correct. So, observing this time lag, however small, would be a direct contradiction of GR and strong evidence for an underlying medium like the superfluid. It's another concrete, observable test.
That's incredible. It takes this deep cosmological theory and brings it right into observable real-time astronomy. Okay, let's shift back to the flow of time again. You linked it to entropy increase via wave function collapse.
Yes, the thermodynamic arrow of time. Now, if time's current is driven by this continual increase in entropy,
Then what's physically pushing that current along on the largest scales?
massive structures. Think about things like the Great Attractor, this enormous region of space that galaxy clusters, including our own, are being pulled towards.
It's like a huge gravitational anomaly.
Right. In the PSAMO view, these aren't just anomalies. They represent large-scale density variations and flow patterns in the superfluid. They are the dominant drivers of the gravitational current.
So these massive structures are literally directing the flow of the superfluid, and that flow is linked to the thermodynamic arrow of time. Gravity becomes an informational flow driver.
That's the implication. The large-scale structure dictates the flow, which correlates with the increase of entropy via ongoing wave function collapse. It connects the very large to the quantum.
And there's more, isn't there? Because the universe is supposed to be one coherent quantum system in this model.
Yes, the underlying BEC state implies a fundamental unity. This leads to another prediction. A causal large-scale alignments.
A causal, meaning faster than light connections. Spooky action at a distance.
Not quite faster than light communication, but correlations over distances too vast to have been connected by any signal traveling at light speed since the universe began. We might observe, for instance, the spin axes of widely separated galaxies showing alignments that standard cosmology can't explain.
How would they get aligned if they can't talk to each other via gravity or light?
PSVO2 suggests these alignments aren't caused by ongoing interactions, but are a fossil record of the universe's initial quantum coherence, imprinted during that very first phase transition triggered by the inverse explosion.
So the alignment was baked in from the start, reflecting the unity of the original superfluid state.
Exactly. And the theory suggests the filaments of the cosmic web, the pathways along which the superfluid flows preferentially, might act as conduits, maintaining some semblance of this large-scale quantum coherence, propagating phonon information in a way that standard models wouldn't predict. It's a deep, underlying unity manifesting.
This is fascinating. We've gone from the smallest scale, the bit, the quantum fluid, right up to the largest structures and the flow of time itself. It all seems to hinge on information being physical and structural.
It does. Which brings us to maybe the most complex structure of all, the human brain and consciousness.
Right. The listener drew a distinction. Reality is informational structural, but maybe consciousness is holographic.
Yes, and there's scientific basis for that distinction, notably from Carl Pribram's work in neuropsychology. He proposed that memories aren't stored in single locations, like files in a cabinet.
But they're distributed.
Distributed as interference patterns across neural networks, much like a hologram stores information. Any small part of the hologram contains information about the whole picture.
So the brain might be processing the fundamental information of the superfluid reality, but doing so using a holographic method.
It's a compelling idea. The brain as a holographic interface processing the universe's underlying informational code.
But now we're developing technology that interfaces directly with that biological processor, brain-machine interfaces.
And this is where we hit a potential crisis point. BCIs allow us to read neural activity, yes, but also to write it, to stimulate neurons, to influence thought and action directly.
Which blurs the line of agency, doesn't it? The source material raised the crisis of free will and identity.
Absolutely. Imagine a future scenario. Your brain is augmented, connected to a cloud computing system that uses algorithms to help you make decisions, maybe complex financial ones, or even social interactions.
The decision feels like your own, but it might be guided or even determined by an external algorithm optimizing for some outcome. Who is actually deciding?
Exactly. Where does you end and the algorithm begin? It fundamentally challenges our intuitive notions of the self and free will.
And then there's the idea of mind uploading, whole brain emulation.
If consciousness, or the mind, can be accurately mapped and simulated digitally, it implies independence from the biological hardware. You could have backups, run the simulation on different platforms.
Maybe transfer yourself to a robotic body for space travel, or just live indefinitely in a simulation.
The possibilities are staggering and, frankly, terrifying in some ways, which is why the call for neural rights is so urgent.
Rights we've never needed before.
Never. The right to mental privacy, keeping your thoughts truly your own. The right to agency or cognitive liberty, freedom from manipulation of your thought processes. And the right to identity, protecting your fundamental sense of self from being altered or fragmented.
These are huge ethical questions arising directly from our increasing ability to treat the brain as an information processor we can interface with.
And the technology is advancing incredibly fast. Driven by huge projects like the U.S. Brain Initiative and the EU Human Brain Project, our understanding of the brain has exploded in just the last 15 years.
More knowledge gained recently than in all prior human history.
It feels that way. And BCIs are moving rapidly from medicine, treating Parkinson's, paralysis, Alzheimer's, towards consumer applications, augmentation, enhanced cognition, communication.
It's poised to be an economic and social revolution, isn't it? Companies like Neuralink, Kernel.
Yeah.
They're betting big on this neurotech future.
They are. It seems the next great frontier isn't just outer space, but the inner space of the mind, defined and potentially reshaped by information technology.
Okay, let's try and tie this all together. We've covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive.
We really have. But the core thread has been this listener's hypothesis about an inverse black hole explosion seeding our universe.
And we found that the PSUMO framework, with its superfluid universe, actually provides a surprisingly coherent structure for that idea.
Right. PSMUT defines reality as fundamentally informational and structural, this cosmic BEC. It uses circle inversion geometry to explain how symmetry could be preserved during such a violent cross-dimensional event.
It makes predictions we can actually test, like that secondary BAO peak, the PSEO peak in galaxy distributions.
And the time lag for gravitational waves passing through dense superfluid regions, that effective refractive index for spacetime. Plus, it offers potential solutions to existing puzzles like the oversized early black holes found by JWST.
So the big takeaway here, the thing that connects cosmology to consciousness, seems to be the power, the physicality of information itself.
Absolutely. Whether it's the bit underlying reality, the geometric rules preserving symmetry, or the neural data defining your sense of self-information, isn't just passive, it's the active ingredient shaping everything.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider.
If the universe has this deep underlying quantum coherence, perhaps stemming from that initial superfluid state, and if consciousness operates holographically where the part reflects the whole,
And if reality itself arises from acts of observation, from informational bits.
then could it be that your individual act of observation, your flicker of self-awareness, isn't just a passive reception of reality, but is somehow necessary? Does your consciousness, your bit, actively participate in upholding the coherence, the informational integrity of the entire cosmos?
Are you, by observing, reinforcing the very structure of existence? Something to definitely mull over. Keep questioning, keep exploring.